well, we will have the agenda up there as well. I was working your magic furiously over here. And if you can you put the care key up there so people can follow along? Excellent. And if you don't know, we were talking about this earlier, Fern and I, she's Tangataroa, she knows. At the end, when we get to Homie Ue Taikie, it's great if you can join in and say Taikie.
Just an acknowledgement, yeah.
So, po hihiri, po rarama, po o te whakaro, po o te tangata, po o te aroha, te po e here nei I tato, mori ora ki e tato,
Homie Ue Taikie. Kia ora tāu.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody. So, introduction. Oh, actually, no, you do your health and safety.
Okay.
That's important.
Okay, so health and safety. If there is a fire alarm, we'll head out the doors and down the stairs to where you came in. Please do not use the lift and do not stay to collect your personal belongings. We'll just promptly head out into the car park at the front. That's our meeting spot. The toilets are through the door, the sliding door next to the stairs, male dinner. And if you injure yourself on council premises, please let your host know and the appropriate first aid will be given. The host for this meeting is Tamara.
I am up to date with my first aid. Okay, introduction. So we will start with me. You may have noticed from the accent, we were just talking in the coffee room. I am from Canada, but I have lived in New Zealand for quite a long time. I moved over here with my family in 2001. We moved to Auckland. My kids were quite young, so they've been raised Kiwi, which is great. And yeah, that was a long time ago. Obviously, they're all grown up and by now. I've always worked in conservation or some kind of environmental protection in some way or another, but in a lot of diverse ways. So I've worked for Auckland Regional Council as a park ranger. I've been a zookeeper, both in Canada and here at Auckland. I've worked for DOC as a species conservation officer. I was a bear warden actually as well in Canada for Parks Canada. And I've had my own business, which I think helps a bit with what I'm doing now. I can relate to some of the stresses that growers might have. I started a landscape design business that I ran in Auckland for 4 years. And then we had a ecotourism business in Canada for 8 years, which got scuttled by COVID, which was unfortunate. But we used to do whitewater rafting in a remote area of BC and take people out to view grizzly bears. So this new role that I'm in is environmental monitoring officer for horticulture for Northern Regional Council. And it is still an environmental protection role. So I'm still doing what I love to do, just in a slightly different capacity. And what I hope to get out of today, which is what I hope that you'll all tell us as well, what you want to get out of today, is just opening those lines of communication and just starting a place where we can have just open, frank discussions about compliance issues and what we all face. And because it's hard for us sometimes to enforce some of the rules, and like we'd like to know when it's hard for you guys to comply or when you have questions. And yeah, we'll just start the ball rolling and get to know each other. So Fern, you want to go next?
Kia ora everyone, my name's Fern Walton. So I am the Environmental Monitoring Officer for Forestry. I've been in forestry industry for probably the last 11 years prior to coming to council. So that ranged from working in a forestry crew, being a machine operator, loading the boats out at the port, doing silviculture to being a silviculture manager. So I know full well about aerial spraying, afforestation, all that sort of stuff as well. And then I've been in this role for nearly 2 years now. Really enjoy my role being here with council, and I guess from a compliance aspect has its challenges, but it's still good to sort of relate to industry and I guess meeting some form of middle ground day between industry and council and doing more of collaborative things and partnerships, because at the end of the day we're all on this within the same team. We all want good environmental outcomes and things like that, and I guess this is the premise for this meeting as well, because we also do run a forestry environmental meeting as well, which has been really good for industry and council rapport as well. So I guess going forward this would be really something really cool to see happen in this space as well. But yeah, that's pretty much me really.
Thanks for
Good everyone.
I'm Alexandra Ashkettle. I'm the Compliance Monitoring Manager for the Primary Industries team, which includes horticulture, forestry, farm, fish passage, and water use. And previously, my role at council was based in Waipapa as a monitoring officer, so that's where I probably had my most horticulture kind of incidents, compliance incidents that I would look into. And then, yeah, I've been working in fish passage for the last wee while, and now I'm the manager.
Kia ora koutou, I'm Angie Seymour. I work at Mapu Avocados in the not so winterless far north. I do the compliance side of things and administration at Mapu. I do a bit of everything because we're a small team. I have 3 grown-up kids. I have 1.5 grandchildren. One on the way in January. So yeah, and before that I've worked in the funeral director business. I've also worked with the elderly, taking care of them in the rest home. Yes, and I've also worked in social services, navigating with families and at-risk families and domestic violence. So I've had quite a broad life of doing different jobs. Yes, I'm currently been at Mapu for the last 6 years. I love my job. I love what I do, and I enjoy the people I work with. And especially having contact with Glenys, who's been fabulous to work with too. It's a great lady to contact if you need help. So yes, and I work with John as manager of Mapu as well. So yeah, ngā mihi nui.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora everybody, John Barlow. I'm the manager of Mapu Avocados. That's approximately 205 hectares of avocados, about 180 hectares of canopy. It's part of the Forlong group, which totals up about 410 hectares up there. So we've had our challenges in the last year, like most people, with weather and conditions and things like that. Lots of water again last month. Yeah, so just like to come down and see how things work as far as the Northern Regional Council with with the permits and monitoring of the insecticides and stuff like that, and which we hold very south up north because we're pretty close to the sea, so we want to make sure that our waterways and the neighbours, of course, who live around us are protected. We've done our own ecological surveys a couple of years ago with some students from university, marine biology students. We've got a big survey of all the waterways throughout the orchards, 3 orchards up there. And it was a really, really good result. We have a lot of life, a lot of fish and eels and all sorts of things in our waterways. We have a lot of water. Mapua, for instance, it ends up going up to sea, unfortunately, all the groundwater, but we've collected and measured it's 400 million cubic litres of water per year just going out of the ground in our drains. And it's non-stop every year, doesn't matter how dry it is. And that doesn't include any surface water or anything like that coming off the orchard. That's just our orchard. It's a lot of water. It'd be nice to tap it all, but unfortunately we don't have facilities for dams and that, so it's mainly groundwater. But yeah, it's coming along. It's coming along. We've got a new 30 hectare development coming in this year, and lots of redevelopment after the cyclones and the wet weather last year. We had parts of the orchard looking like the Florida Everglades without crocodiles. So there's a lot of areas to remedy this year, which we have and redone and replanted. So but the replants carry on, but that's throughout the whole orchards. So it's been a hard time, as most avocado orchards in the north are had, and crops are down a little bit this year, but that's just the way it goes. But again, I'd like to already thank Glenys because she's been a great help to us with the spray programs and mapping us when we're wrong and when we have some mistakes occasionally too. So, but she's awesome. So that's basically what I'd like to get out and see how that eventuates today and meet all you guys too. So thank you.
Kia ora koutou, Glenys Parton. So I'm the Technical Director for New Zealand Avocado. So I'm the policeman. I'm known as the detective and the policeman in the organisation, and I seem to have a high sense of when things don't quite add up. But I'm here kind of to understand, what might be the barriers to compliance for what I call my growers, and helping them to, assist them through that process of maintaining. Because most of them don't wake up in the morning and think, who can I grass off by being non-compliant, and set out to do that. I think they always wake up with very best intentions. Some of them get a little bit sidetracked sometimes. So I guess that's what I'm here. I'm kind of on behalf of them trying to understand your side of the equation, and then how can we, as you say, come together and rather than have a kind of punitive approach, have a more educational and coaching. I mean, sometimes you do have to get out the stick. Whack.
Fortunately, yes.
That's the last resort.
Yes. Collaboration.
Mm.
Hi, I'm Chris Frost, and I'm Client Relationships Manager for Freshmax, and I have a lot to do with Glennis as well, and have a good relationship with Glennis, I hope still. I've been involved in horticulture for about 36 years, in various apples, kiwi fruit, avocados, and have quite a lot to do with spray recommendations, spray diaries, and compliance, global gap compliance for Freshmax. And it is a challenge, and the compliance is huge these days, and the industry is obviously struggling at the moment. So I'm here to see what you guys are about, and hopefully not see any more tears of compliance, because it's driving me nuts, and I've got 6 grandkids, and so I probably shouldn't be here now. I should be out fishing, but anyway. So that's it for me.
Kia ora, I'm Jane Lamb. I'm with the New Zealand Agrochemical Education Trust, and one of the things we do is run the growth state training programs. So part of my reason for being here today is to understand what the issues are up here and how we can incorporate that into our training and get the word out a bit more. The other thing we do is we own or co-own with Standards New Zealand the New Zealand Standard for the Management of Agrochemicals, which some of which was sort of incorporated into the Northland Plan. Very good, Tamara, get a special tick. And we also work with other councils around similar issues, so it's always good to sort of understand councils so that we can use that learning for other councils and understand it. So I work across the space in terms of agrochemical users, from growers, but all the way down to spraying parks and gardens and conservation and things like that. So all ag users.
Kia ora. I'm Kevin Strawbridge. I'm on the pension. I own Northland Forestry Nursery Limited. It's an industrial size horticultural operation. Well, it's not horticulture, it's kind of forestry and a half bred. But we grow 13 million trees a year. We employ 8 full-time workers and 32 seasonal workers, all of whom are tangata whenua, including even me, believe it or not. We have had our issues with coloured water discharge, and it continues to be extremely challenging, and the solutions I don't think are particularly environmentally good, because what we're trying to achieve and the outcomes we achieve are only visual. But anyway, for my first 20 years at work, I worked for corporate forestry, worked in all parts of corporate forestry, ending up being a regional marketing manager, selling, if you can imagine, 20 years ago, $100 million worth of logs a year. The last 23 years, I've owned my own forestry nursery, which has grown steadily over the years, and now I'm pleased to say my son is managing it and is part owner. We see ourselves as an important part of the community, employing a lot of people who wouldn't otherwise have jobs. And it's really important to us that we have a good relationship with the council, because there's a lot of power in the council through the Resource Management Act and the way it's interpreted, and the outcomes can be really, really bad. Just to satisfy some really altruistic goals sometimes. Yeah.
Morning, I'm Sarah Williamson. I work in a couple of different roles in horticulture. I've worked in horticulture my whole life, having grown up on a Pippinstone fruit orchard in Hawke's Bay. And then after doing a degree in horticulture, I worked as a research scientist with plant and food in Hawke's Bay for 8 years before I moved up here to the Northland. And then when I moved up here, I had a role with Horticentre and then Farmlands as a horticulture vet. So currently I work independently and I subcontract to a couple of different places, predominantly Linwood Avocado Nursery. So that takes up most of my time where I'm in a customer and technical support role there. I also subcontract to Golden Mile Fruit Packers and manage all their food safety compliance, so internal audits and everything to do with food safety. And then I also do a little bit of work on the side with another Chris Frost from Frost and Sons with land development in Northland, and did a bit of work with him around consulting with landowners before the Te Tautokarea Water Trust dams were set up. So yeah, I have a finger in a few different pies. So today I just aim to make some connections really, because sometimes it's about knowing who to talk to.
Yes.
And so that's what I want to get out today.
Excellent. Thank you.
Oh, good morning. I'm John Emmett. Cut my teeth in the horticultural industry locally on some of the earliest kiwi fruit and avocado blocks. Like many people in the room, been involved in horticulture most of my working life. During that time, had a lot of varied and very interesting roles. So currently employed by Just Avocados. So we market avocados internationally and domestically. And the easiest way to explain it is the company is a grower as well. So we have orchards from the Kaipara Harbour to the far north. My main role is similar to Chris Frost, just that liaison with what we call third-party suppliers, so growers of avocados, whether it's technical help, compliance, harvest flow planning. And I have a slight role in that in our company orchards as well. So really what I want to get out today is the sort of most up-to-date information that we can pass on to our own orchards and our customers, just to keep them on the right side of compliance. So, been out of Whangarei for about 30 years and came home about 4.5, 5 years ago and living out Whangarei Heads Way.
What part of Whangarei Heads?
Pātaua.
Okay.
Oh,
We're-
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're in the North Coast, so we're closer in. Thank you. Now, we'll do Nyla and then we'll go up. I don't want to forget my people online either.
My name is Nyla Jackson. I am the compliance monitoring team admin here at council. I've done a little bit of everything from dairy farming to bartending to working as a table games dealer.
That's my favorite.
And I'm here for about just over 2 years now.
Thanks, Nyla. All right, who should we start with online? We've got Sarah. Should we start with you since you have to leave at 11?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Cameron. I'm Senior Policy Advisor for Horticulture New Zealand. So I look after 5 regions in New Zealand, Northland being one of them. I sit within the Environment Policy team within Horticulture New Zealand, and we are responsible for advocating for rules that support horticulture at a national, regional and district plan level. So we submit submissions and we attend hearings and environment court. And once the rules are operative, we then hand over to product groups to implement those rules. So we're not a compliance body. So just thinking about agrochemical use, that's more product groups, or specifically kiwi fruit, that would be Zespri compliance. what I hope to get out of today is just listening, I guess, to any policy or rule blockages that growers might have that we could, investigate further, and also just make connections. And I guess that's it from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. And just so everybody knows, she has to duck out at 11 because she's got a meeting with the Minister of Horticulture, which seemed like a good excuse.
Yeah, the minister's in Canterbury. I'm based in Canterbury, and she's doing grower visits yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So I'm joining her on that. So yeah, I'm sorry I have to duck out.
Thanks for coming for a short time anyway. And then maybe we'll go to Kirsty. Where'd she go? There she is.
That was amazing.
Oh, we just can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Stunning. There's a few Zespri and NZKGI in our room with us. So I'm Kirsty Reedy Joe, and I'm the Global Resource Specialist at Zespri Kiwifruit. So I help support behaviour change with growing kiwifruit essentially, and I'm working with our Safe Spray communications this year. So that's why I'm attending, to hear from Tamara about Northland and stuff. And I will pass you on to Kylie Parks, who sat next to me.
Hi guys, obviously, my name's Kylie. I'm the Environmental Compliance and Investigation Specialist at Zespri. So I'm the one that gets to look into all the concerns and issues around spraying, for an example. So I've worked quite closely with Tamara, and I'm hoping from participating in this, I can get a bit more understanding on how Northland wants to keep going forward with all the rules and regulations, or anything that I need to know, any suggestions or ideas other people have. And just for my background, I've been in compliance for about 8-9 years. Previously from Zespri, I worked actually at Bay of Plenty Regional Council in the pollution response team, and previously to that in Auckland in the road tax, working on monitoring as a monitoring officer. So I've done quite a lot of different bits and pieces in the environmental monitoring compliance aspect. And so that's me.
Thanks, Kylie. And maybe we'll go to Kathy. Hi.
Hi. So I'm Kathy Mason from New Zealand Kiwifruit Growers, and I'm a senior policy advisor. Northland's a bit new to me, so I'm sitting in really to learn a bit more how things work there. I've just recently sat through the high cane hearing, so I've got an interest too in anything agrochemical related, along with the two Zespri people we have here, and kind of anything policy related, to be honest, that's of relevance to kiwifruit growers. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. That's wonderful, everybody. We've got quite a diverse group, and it's amazing how many people are interested in the same things, just coming from a slightly different angle. It's always great for me because the product groups are doing a lot of my job for me, which is fantastic. We do appreciate it. And it's just good to meet everybody. So we'll maybe move into Fern's presentation. She's going to tell you how the forestry working group operates. It's been, when did it start? Ages ago.
Yeah. Do you know, Alex, when it started?
Isn't it in your PowerPoint?
It's like 20 years old, I think. Yeah.
It's a full industry. All right, so this is our Northland Forestry Environmental Working Group that we have here at Council, and basically just doing a run through on how that works with us here, between obviously relationship between, Council and forestry industry. So yeah, pretty much just the background of what we do. So obviously myself as a compliance officer for Northland Regional Council, using why it works for compliance, obviously between ourselves and industry. I do site visits for compliance. So every site visit I do, is making sure that obviously the rules that they operate under is the NESCF. So, National Environmental Standards for Commercial Forestry. But mainly it's really good for Northland too, because they actually do quite well so far as, industry self-regulation. So for me, it's different for me coming from forestry industry into this space, because I guess for me, I know quite a lot of people in that sort of network anyway, which I guess is advantageous in my position to try and build that rapport with industry some more. But I've noticed between going to other councils and things like that, so far as Northland goes commercially for forestry up here, they're actually pretty good at doing self-regulation as well. So they'll obviously have their own, Northland Wood Council will have their own meetings trying to get their best practice to a high standard, going above the NESCF, just trying to instill that, everyone in Northland that is operating under forestry, whether you're a small woodlotting crew, or you're a big corporate company, basically just following that sort of standard, of having good operating practices that obviously coincide with the NESCF as well. So, yeah, a bit of an overview on that one. Yeah, can you go next, please, Marla? Oh, there we go. So here's the history. So the group was formed in 2001. And it was known as Northland RMA Forestry Development Group. So a little bit before my time prior to council. Yeah. As is established to primarily discuss industry-wide environmental issues. The scope was widened to include more council representation. So obviously, again, it's trying to just get that sort of rapport between industry and council, and obviously just, coming together as a more of a collaborative space and that from that industry as well. 2015 forestry earthworks and harvesting guidelines for Northland were developed by the group. The most recent version of these is in 2022. So just touching on what I was saying before, so pretty much that guide that was made is basically like a best practice for forestry and what that would look like in a compliance lens, like everything from, earthworks to river crossings to harvesting. So that was a collaboration between Northland Wood Council and ourselves. So it formed this document and basically a best practice on, this is how you conduct, harvesting, earthworks, things like that, to just, I guess, so far as raising the bar for Northland and industry, just something so they can strive towards instead of just doing, the bare minimum of the NESCF, which is, really, really good document, guideline for this region. But yeah, I guess after the NESPF was now the NESCF, has come through as well. So there's a few more rules that have come through from that as well. Also in 2019, it was agreed to work together to capture all forestry operations in Northland. So again, it's just, going through just, still maintaining that rapport, still council, doing site visits, having these meetings, just having that good connection, with industry, and I guess creating what's good about these forestry meetings is that it's more of like encouraging a safe space to have these discussions. There's been a few times when we've had these meetings and it has been pretty invasive and pretty confrontational, because obviously if we have rule changes like the NESCF, and looking from an industry lens on how, one, you interpret those rules, two, how would council enforce those rules. So we have had some pretty interesting topics of conversation, but it's not a bad thing, because at least then you're in a safe space to sort of nut that out, as opposed to you going onto site and trying to conduct a site visit. So I guess it'd be really good to see in this forum, like going through those, not issues, but just having those sort of honest talks and gaining sort of traction in a sense where we're all on the same page, so yeah. I think it's just pretty much just touching on what I've said prior, but I won't read that out. I'll let you guys read that one.
I actually think I've almost used that exact slide in mine anyway, so we'll come to that again. I copied Spence.
Back to your key objectives as well. Yes, there you go, to share, discuss innovative ideas which benefit the industry and the environment. So again, just going through those things where, where everything meets up on our obligations, so far as the environment, and same with forestry industry as well. I guess it's always good too, like for me in these presentations for forestry. I guess it's hard coming from a space of compliance because obviously with our jobs we're always, I guess, focusing, on the negative things. But for me, I always try and do on my presentations is doing like what good practice looks like and what bad practice looks like. So I'm always trying to encourage industry, if they've done a really good job, I'll happily say it, instead of trying to fixate on issues that are sort of happening in that space. So I think that's always important as well, giving them ups, when they've done good mahi, to actually give them that sort of recognition as well. Yeah. So this is pretty much just outlining what the collaborative people are in with our group as well. So obviously for us, we've got all of Northland region, but we've also got our district councils as well, so that's anything from NTA, which do all the road, public infrastructure and things like that if logging trucks are going through. So sometimes that district councils will request plans for us, because when they submit like a permitted activity, it will come through to me, but any location that the forestry blocks in will actually include the district council, which is good as well, so they can obtain that information as well if they need things that are part of their district plans and things like that. Same with, I don't think we've had a lot of DOC presence, but I think as of late, it wasn't our last meeting, we had a lot to do with Cody.
That's right.
Yeah. Like biosecurity and things like that with Cody protection, because there's always going to be, crossovers of, I've got 2 forests at the moment where there's like a Cody pocket of trees, and on either side there's pine stands and they're harvesting. So obviously for me as an officer, I can only go under the NESCF, and in this middle part of Cody actually falls under the Biosecurity Act, which then involves, MPI and things like that. So there's always going to be, collaborative things between, councils, MPI, things like that as well, which is always good to have all those right people at the table, because I think there's a lot more crossovers than people realise, as soon as things sort of start to roll on. But yeah, so that's pretty much just a big collaboration of everyone, extending from your council to different government agencies and people really. So we have industry-led presentations in these meetings as well. So obviously forestry industry will do, if they want presentations to do and things like that, with how their harvesting's going, or they did a lot, I think it was last year when we had that Cyclone Gabriel, impacts that they'd had to industry, all that sort of stuff. So they'll always share their presentations on things that have sort of been going on in sort of their environment as well. And then same with us, we'll do presentations as well. So every quarter I'll do like a compliance presentation, which basically just gives like stats on what our compliance ratings are, and if there's non-compliance or compliance in what areas, whether it's, earthworks, roof crossings, harvesting. It's really good. They like seeing all the stats on how that looks for us as a region. Same with like case studies, things like that. But yeah, quite a lot of it I'd noticed in the last year had been relatively quite active around, the effects of Cyclone Gabriel as well. But yeah, there's always definitely a lot of things to share between what's going on in industry and what's going on with us really as a region. So yeah, it's always interesting. Sorry, I've got a bit ahead of myself there. So yeah, that was pretty much just describing what my presentations look like, which is sharing compliance stats by month. I'll also show like photos of my site visits as well on the ground, which is always good to show, as opposed to just showing a whole heap of graphs. So for me, I've predominantly come from working out on site and working in the bush. This whole office setting isn't really something I'm accustomed to, but I'm getting there. So it's always good to show, you've got stats, you've also got things, what it looks like on the ground, so far as what, best practice looks like, or a couple little things of low risk non-compliance and things like that as well. Yeah, that I'll do every quarter for that as well. Same with for addressing compliance matters and other incidents like case studies. We end up having, like a process where there's investigation that's been made, or looking at the systems of where, even where the contractor's done something right and they've done everything by the book, can have, for example, Cyclone Gabriel, you're still going to get a breach, but that's due to natural causes. You can do everything right and things still go wrong. So that's always an interesting topic of discussion as well in our meetings. Yeah. And so I think it's every year they try and do like a field trip to bring out everyone from, well, industry and council as well, and district councils, because it's always good to see, you know, the process on how forestry works. You know, it's a massive process leading from, you know, aerial spraying to planting right up to, you know, establishing infrastructure and the, you know, logs going out on the log trucks leaving the forest. So it's really good to get especially district councils and other functionary places as well sort of looking at that process. So I think they try to do a field day. I think it was twice a year they try and achieve that. I don't think we've had one set for Northland up here yet, but yeah, that it's something that we always try and do as well, just to try and widen the scope for everyone. Yeah.
How often do you meet?
For the meetings, quarterly, yes, 4 times a year we'll go through all this stuff. Why it works, a tool for compliance. Yes, obviously, yeah, forestry is mainly operational stuff as well, outside of, you know, legislation stuff. Yeah, obviously it's a good forum as well to get feedback. So recently, Savannah and I went down to a meeting in Palmerston North with other regional councils, which is really good. So it's trying to achieve like national consistency between all of our councils, which was actually really interesting. You know, we're going through our stats and, you know, what our process is, what the interpretations are for the rules and things like that. And that was actually a really good meeting to have, to go through what it looks like, you know, nationally, and how that looks like, you know, so far as dealing with other forestry companies in different regions, right down to the topography, you know, and soil types as well. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I think that was from, it would have been 3 years ago, I think that was. There's a discharge from a forestry site where I guess it goes to one of those classic examples. A harvest contractor had built infrastructure and built landings and was unaware that out of all of the landings he had in this massive estate, one landing was actually different soil type that they're unaware of. So when a big rain event came in, they'd put all the right stormwater controls in, it still collapsed. And it actually discharged into a river there. I guess it's just going through, you know, basically covering soil versus slope and land use as well, that, you know, just because you've got one type of soil in majority of the forest, you could always have a different change in soil type in a rain event that could come in and actually cause a discharge. But yes, these are presentations that we also work on as well, more of a educational thing. So when we do our presentations with industry, the intent is not to try and, you know, name and shame these companies. It's a matter of trying to learn from these things. You know, what went wrong, what other steps could they have taken, you know, in place to try and, you know, avoid or mitigate those risks. So I guess that's the biggest thing there, because I think in some meetings like that, I guess it can be quite threatening. You know, you're putting on presentations or images of basically people's mistakes, you know, but we're not here to try and judge that. We're just here to try and come up with some active solutions. Yeah, so that was just an example for that as well. Preparing a measurement plan and construction of a river crossing. So they led a whole thing on how to basically develop what an ideal river crossing would look like, obviously in line with the NESCF as well. So obviously industry put through a presentation on what would the best practice be that would be compliant under the NESCF of constructing a river crossing and preparing a management plan and what that would look like for that to be compliant, and what council would look for on that as well, and discussing expectations on how we want to see, you know, constructed river crossings essentially for it to be compliant. Yeah, there we go. Accountability for non-compliance. So this just goes back to my, I guess, presentations again on things we see out in the field. So again, not something to try and name and shame companies and contractors, but just, I guess, giving them more accountability, you know, like going through the block, you know, if they're walking their machines out and say there's tracks open, you know, could they have done a better best practice when they're walking out? Could they have just slowly closed the tracks as they're, you know, sort of leaving that area, harvest area? It's just, yeah, giving them more, I guess, room to, in that space where if there's things like little things like that or things of non-compliance where they're just, I guess, being held more accountable by that as well, just obviously seeing what we see on the ground. Yeah. Yeah, like I said before, this is pretty much an industry up here that does quite well to self-regulate themselves as well. So usually they'll go out, even outside of these meetings with just Northland Wood Council, they'll actually do site visits to other forest companies and actually do audits on each other, which is really interesting as well. I guess it's just going back to, yeah, keeping themselves accountable, you know, trying to do the best, trying to get the best environmental outcomes as well. And obviously, as you're aware, for forestry, social license isn't overly that great at the moment in light of the Cyclone Gabriel and things, you know, down in Tairawhiti at the moment. So obviously to them putting their best foot forward and trying to just get some good outcomes is obviously going to be really helpful to them with social license things as well. So yeah. There you go, yeah, social license in jeopardy after Cyclone Gabriel. So yeah, the need for self-regulation driven by to lift up environmental performance. So yeah, I guess nationally, I would assume that most wood councils across the country would probably be starting to go down that route just in light of what's happened with that as well. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of ways to go, I think, but definitely on the right path. But yeah, so there's a lot of things that we do as well so far as compliance visits as well. Them trying to put on workshops as well in industry as well for like so usually Wood Council will hold like things for when new forestry students coming up from university, they'll put on workshops for them to try and get them internships, to get them into industry as well, more environmental spaces before graduating, which is pretty cool actually. Yeah. I think it's just pretty much covered really, just reporting non-compliance as well. For industry, I think the biggest thing is I've found being from in compliance coming from industry is that obviously a lot of people in industry have a really hard time of, I guess, if they see something else in the industry that's sort of, you know, they're breaking the rules, is actually trying to come to council and actually talk to us about it. You know, that whole industry shame or being put in that sort of box. But I guess for us, it's trying to still instill that at the end of the day, we're all on the same team, you know, like we want to try and get those good outcomes. And at the end of the day, I can't really spend all day driving around in a ute, you know what I mean, with some binoculars trying to figure out if someone's breaking the rules. So we are really need the public as well, or other industry, you know, if there's people out there that are doing bad practice and breaking the rules, yeah, definitely encourage them to come and talk to me about it, because at the end of the day, whether you're a small woodlot crew or a big company, like we all have to be at the same bar, you know, if that's how we're trying to get this good social licensing and you know, all that sort of stuff as well. But yeah, I guess, yeah, dressers, operators flying under the radar, but I think it's just getting that good rapport. So if they feel safe to ring me and talk to me about it, if it means I've got to go out there and have a look and I get, you know, an anonymous tip that something's going down, then yeah, always definitely go out and investigate it. So yeah. Just goes back through, yeah, the same thing really again. You're talking to people on the ground, or at least close to that. So I guess it just goes back to learning all the processes as well, you know, instead of council getting out on the ground more often, you know, doing site visits, you know, having those discussions with you know, smaller contractors or bigger contractors and things like that. Yeah, like I said prior, level playing field as well. But yeah, other than that, it's pretty much, yeah, said before that. Limitations to self-regulation in forestry. So yeah, this is something I have found quite difficult, and I'm trying to slowly get other operators to try and get the smaller guys in at the table, because majority of these meetings, you're always getting big corporate people, or the same people, or the people that, sort of not really on the ground. And I kind of want people sitting at the table that are from different sort of walks of the operation, because at the end of the day, you're getting a wider scope. So I've probably in the last year since I've been here, I've probably got about like 4 woodlot contractors that are coming to the meetings now, just to try and understand, one, the rules a bit better, 2, mainly networking too. So you'll have small woodlot contractors that won't either know half the companies in the industry, or even just sharing resources. I've found it's a good thing. You're not going to get those resources or access to that sort of knowledge if you're not, networking. So I think that's also important for this sort of group as well, whether you're corporate or you're a little local business, just networking with people and utilising resources and knowledge, I think is important in any industry. So that's something I've found quite difficult, but we're trying to slowly get through that as well. Yeah, pretty much been the biggest limitation, I think, as far as these meetings. But
what about the competition?
The competition majority has been
like, is there a lot of competition between the different companies and things?
Yeah, I'd say so in a sense, but again, it's always going to be, those corporate have that whole paradigm, woodlot, you know what I mean? There's always that divide, and that's sort of what I wanted to achieve in these meetings, is to try and just get it on an even sort of playing field. But I guess in any industry, you're always going to get that sort of stuff between and local businesses and stuff. But yeah, it's just one of those things. Yes, I guess the takeaways from us having these meetings is obviously, we've got a well-established industry and comms between council and industry as well. And like I said, just a good balance of operational and high-level stuff. So, you've got things like policy, legislative stuff, guys on the ground. You've just got a really broad range of all that knowledge and legislation as well, like in these meetings. Always good to foster a two-way discussion between us and industry, just, I guess creating that safe space, and establishing that safe space as well, and building transparency in the long term. But yeah, other than that, that's, I hope I don't waffle on too long, guys, but that's pretty much in essence what we do in the for here. Yeah, do you want to have any questions?
I've got 2 questions for you.
Yeah.
Out our way, we've got the Horahora Awa and the Pātawa one.
Yeah.
The Horahora one runs dirty for a lot longer. Pātawa, it's after a rain event.
Yeah.
Is that because of the forestry up in Kiripaka, Glenburby way?
Not too sure.
Okay.
I'd say it might play a factor. I know that forest you're talking about, when they actually had quite a few slips from that storm that they've been fixing for over the last year. It's been a massive project.
Yeah.
That one.
It's not just been lately, it's constant.
Interesting. How long has it been going on?
I've been back home for 5 years, and then you talk to people who lived on the Horahora River, and they had 10 years or more. Yeah. Like ours will clear in a couple of days.
Yeah.
So the other question I've got is, do you use any cool gadgets in your job? Horticulture.
Yes. So recently I've been using a drone to get a lot of footage, which has been really handy, I guess, in my space for, obviously, I'm going into massive forestry estates that are like 1,000 hectares, and seeing so far as things like, waterways, cut over, things like that. It's, mainly a big use of drones. Like, I'll use drones, probably about 90%, 95% of the time.
Just for photography, or can you measure forest volume and
I guess you could measure volumes and things like that, but I use it mainly obviously as a compliance tool. So yeah, using it as getting, either videos or photos to just monitor compliance, you know, for looking at whether, you know, is there a discharge to a waterway, you know, if they pulled all their slash off their landing, you know, is it on stable ground and things like that. But yeah, I think even in Tamara's space for horticulture, I think using a drone would be highly beneficial. Yeah, massive use of drones for me, really. Yeah.
And she can do amazing things with the pictures now too, because she gets the pictures and then can actually draw like instructive
polygons.
Polygons on there. So say, you know, your slash is here right now, but it should be here. And you know, it's really quite good.
Yeah.
Actually.
So using like polygon overlays. So I had a thing where I had to send, obviously there was a breach for slash and I'd taken photos with the drone footage and used pretty much put polygon overlays outlining the areas that needed to be, you know, fixed, that they needed to clear the slash out where the places where that weren't stable ground. Because obviously, I guess for us, I can't actually dictate saying you need to put slash here and there. I can only state that there's a breach and that it cannot be, you know, wherever that's stated on that part. But yeah, I think drones are very handy. I think in any sort of hort space, forestry space. I use it often. Yeah.
And I just got a new anemometer. I'd been struggling because I've only been in this job for a year, and the H.10.2 part of the rules, 10.1 actually, states about wind direction and everything. And those little handheld anemometers are great if you truly are pointing them into the wind, which maybe you might not want to that particular day, maybe get a slightly different reading. So I've got a new toy. It was quite expensive. It was about $1,500, but you can mount it on a tripod, and then it's got a wind vane, so it automatically orients it in the right direction, and you don't have to be standing there getting sprayed. You know, hopefully you wouldn't be anyway on the downwind edge of the orchard, but it'll send the data to your phone. And it also records it. So then if someone like me shows up and says, you know, what was the wind on that day? You can say, oh, here, I've got it right here. And because it is hard to tell in an orchard sometimes too. You know, you get the airport data and it has nothing to do with what's actually happening within those hedges or down that hill.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of the ones that I want to get out there, because it is right now, I think, you know, you're left with a windsock and maybe one of those handheld things that's just not that useful, especially if you have a neighbor saying, no, it's howling a gale, and then it's just your word against theirs. So there's lots of good avenues out there for little technological gadgets. Just
mapping, like we were talking about.
Yeah.
Saying in forestry space, we get a lot of good like mapping and stuff come through for obviously forestry. They'll have a lot of, you know, intricate software generating all their mapping and things like that. So when they send all their plans through and I review all of them, I'm looking at all of their mapping, you know, where all their waterways are, and me assessing what the risks would be in that forest and what, I guess, what risk rating I'll give that job. So every forestry job that comes through to council, I'll always give a risk rating, whether it's low risk, moderate risk or high risk, and that will basically dictate how many site visits that I would do to that site, and I guess factoring in as well what their compliance history is. Risk as well. But yeah.
Question. Gordon, do you have a question? Oh, never mind.
With that risk, that's classification. It's not just Fern deciding what she would give the.
No. Yeah.
There's a matrix that gets completed, so it's quite consistent.
Yeah, we'll go through, like, you know, is there waterways, you know, is the catchment this size or under this size, you know, how wide's the waterway, what's the erosion class scale, and there'll be set points. So when I go through the risk matrix, it will go through, you know, methodically what the point score would be for that type of land use and forest as well. So yeah, I don't know, might be something worth looking at for your stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's sort of where we're hoping to go as well. Awesome. Is that it? Does anybody have any more questions for Fern? And you can think of something.
I just, you know, with the slash and that, I was just interested. I didn't see it from a news perspective. I did used to work in Kaingaroa Forest years ago. But so is there anybody coming up with ideas, or is there, you know, about what to do with the slash?
How to
We used- we
mitigate
used-
slash. Yep. So there, I know predominantly at the moment, it's mainly sort of around in the South Island at the moment. I think some of the Central North Island are starting to do that now, where they're taking, instead of you leaving all the slash there, they'll remove it from site and they'll actually send them to factories to get pushed into pellets for using as like biofuels and stuff, which I think is great, because even for me, like going out to sites and stuff, you see a lot of, you know, non-merchantable wood, as I'd put it, where they can't sell it and it's just being left behind on a skid, where you could be using all of that slash for like biofuel, you know, mulch. I think it's Fonterra here, Cody, Fonterra here, I think they take some of the forestry slash and they'll turn it into mulch and they'll use it for biomass in their plant. But yeah, I think there is a lot of plans in the works for, I'm not too sure about Northland, but for mainly down here in the South Island, they're doing all of that now, which is really cool.
With all the industry, coal-based generation gets converted to wood-based fuel, there'll be no wood for timber.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to do the whole
They'll be
thing.
able to pay the same prices for saw logs and it'll still be cheaper than buying electricity.
I think there definitely have to be balance, and I think sadly half of it will always come down to money. Do you know what I mean? If there's no, that's the same as, you know, if,
What I'm saying is the slash would be worth as much as saw logs.
Yeah.
In a year's time. It
Yeah.
won't be too long.
No, and hopefully it sort of addresses that issue too. But I do believe as well, there's a big difference between leaving big piles of slash, a difference between a lot of people get caught up on what slash is and what harvest residue is. So you don't really want to clean a whole heap of slash or harvest residue out of the cutover, because yeah, well, one, it's holding on, it's better for sticking to erosion, and it's actually helping growth as well. If you go strip it bare, what's that doing to the soil? Do you know what I mean? You've definitely got to have a fine line on balance between big super piles of slash, concentrate on the landing, and harvest residue and a cutover. But yeah, I think it'd be really cool to see going forward, implementing things where you're just not having all the slash sitting on a landing somewhere waiting to collapse on the next storm event. Yeah. Good.
Okay, mine's going to be quite short. So it won't take too long. I've just got a little kind of proposal, because we are trying in primary industries. We've got, like Alex was saying, we've got farming and forestry and fish passage and water use. And I want to make what I'm doing, we were talking this morning, less reactive, more proactive. We're trying to do the same sort of thing that we're doing with forestry and we're doing with farming, with horticulture. So I'm not just chasing breaches. I would like to be doing something that shows that we are monitoring what's going on. Public perception is sometimes, what's funny, it's either you have no idea what's going on, or my neighbor's spraying, you obviously know about it, tell me what he's spraying. And I'm thinking, I don't know. It's a permitted activity. Who knows? But you should have the spray plan. So this is where we're at. So we're proposing an agrochemical permitted activity monitoring program, also known as Send Me Your Spray Plan. So go to the next slide. So the background is that, as we know, most agrochemical applications fall under the permitted activity rules, which means they're permitted. And they don't require notification under the proposed regional plan, because some activities that are permitted do require notification. Many of Ferns do, and farm as well. So they have the advantage that these things come in. They come in and they're fed into our database. And so she knows what's going around all the time. I don't at the moment, and I'm hoping to change that. And so far we've been relying on complaints from the public to alert us to possible non-compliance with the spray rules. That's not a very reliable way to go. Some people have neighbors who don't care. Some people have neighbors who really care. They hate spraying of all kinds, and you're never going to make them happy, even if it is compliant. And it's often difficult because of just how it is. It's all of Northland, and we're based in Whangarei. Sometimes people spray at 4 o'clock in the morning because it's a good time. So if I get a complaint, I'm not going out there. It's going to be over by the time I get there. So most of my investigation ends up with asking a property owner or manager for their spray plan and the applicator for a risk assessment. So that's great, except that a lot of times I've been finding that they aren't very good. They're not compliant with our rules, and I'm not getting the information that I need from them. And so part of this is that I want to apply these rules consistently, not just, you know, you've been singled out by a nasty neighbor who doesn't like you, and now I want your spray plan to be perfect, where everyone else's is not that good. So I want to really get it so it's a level playing field for everyone. Yeah, next slide, please. So our key objectives are to ask all commercial growers to submit their spray plans. So this isn't just kiwi fruit and avocados. This is also going to be plant nurseries and all that sort of thing. And things I don't know about, which I'm hoping to ask you guys, because you have the expertise. Who's growing what out there? I don't have this information. You'd think council would, but we don't. So I'm hoping to get more information on that. I want to do like Fern does, and if people submit their spray plans to me online, we'll have a portal that makes it easy. You'll go on a web page that we set up, you'll just zoom in there, and then you can upload your documents, and then I'll have them, which is fantastic. We'll apply a risk matrix to those spray plans and look at the properties and be able to identify which ones are high risk on the basis of things like the risk of offsite adverse effects. You're looking at the sensitivity of receivers, waterways, you know, have you got a preschool next door, all those sorts of things. And also prior non-compliance with the permitted activity spray rules. So that'll feed into it as well, which
Just
it
like
does
my stuff, yeah.
with Burns as well. Yeah, so next slide. So our goal, the goal is not just to give people another bureaucratic hurdle to jump over. I'm not a big, I'm in compliance, but I'm not a big rule person myself. I would think it's great that people self-regulate and they're trying to do the right thing. But our goal is to promote and uphold the responsible use of agrochemicals in commercial horticulture as a key component of sustainable land management, which is what we all want. Clean air and water, uncontaminated soil, biodiversity, and health and wellness in our communities. That is the goal, and that's a common goal that we all share. We live here and we all want that. How are we going to achieve this goal? Well, we want to make it easier for growers to comply. I've been in this job for a year. It's taken me almost this long to understand our own rules. So it's taken me a long time to wrap my head around how they all work. I have to say that some of the best documents I've had to explain them have been industry documents. I'll go to HortNZ or something and they'll have an explanation of how what the PRP means to you. And I'll be like, oh, now I see. So we do need to make it easier for people. We have to make the information more accessible. And again, like I said, I would like to try providing a portal for submitting spray plans online. And to ensure that all commercial growers are complying with the regional plan requirements, which starts with developing and submitting an annual spray plan. It's key. It seems a bit mundane or whatever, but record keeping is crucial to the whole thing. It's no different than being a bus driver and having to log your hours. You know, it's no good to tell the cop that, yeah, it's all right, I stopped for coffee half an hour ago, don't worry, I'm fine. You really have to have that documentation. So, and collaborating with people like yourselves, you've got great self-regulation already. You have amazing compliance teams that are doing such good work. You're getting the information out there. So I would really like to, you know, just work more with you. I think we're all aiming for the same goal, and I think we can help each other out. So the advantages for growers, and they're going to need some because they've got a lot of things to worry about already. It indicates to council that the grower is acting in good faith already. If I've got a spray plan that's been submitted online, I know already that this person knows the rules, is trying to follow the rules, you know, and it helps me out right from the get-go. Someone's trying.
If an incident comes and you say, oh, so-and-so done a plan, everything's all good.
Yes.
Yeah. So
it levels the playing field because it's a whole lot easier just to try to slip under the radar and not do any of this stuff and hope nobody complains. But that's of course penalizing the people who are doing the right thing. And I'm hoping it will also improve public perception because places like Ketty right now, you've got a lot of people that are moving into the area. It's becoming, you know, quite intensely populated. And, you know, someone sells up from Auckland and buys their paradise property next to a kiwi orchard, looks beautiful. They wake up on Sunday morning at 4 a.m. to a motorized sprayer and they can smell the high cane through the window. And it's just the end of the world. So if they know that I know what's going on, I have that spray plan. I know that person who, you know, is doing the right thing. And I can say, look, you may not like spraying, but this spraying is happening in accordance with our rules, and it's fine. And it's actually quite surprising to me how many people go, oh, okay. And that's the end of that. So yeah, that's where we're trying to go with that. So yeah, if we have the spray complaint, we can get it done fast. We call it a desktop investigation. Certainly easier than heading out in the car. I can do all the things and have it. We've also been using to quite good effect with one of our problem orchards. It's more of a problem neighbor, to be honest, but they have had problems in the past that were real. They videotape their own spray events, and it's fantastic. You know, it's there, and I can look at it and go, oh no, actually, you may think that that's what happened this morning, but I actually have this videotape on hand that shows that that's what happened. And they've also been really good, actually. This one particular one, they've had many monitoring officers in the past that have come out to that particular site, and so many things that they've done to help make their orchard kind of bulletproof. They've taken out big chunk of vines back from where they had a waterway down the bottom. And the neighbor that was complaining was very concerned that the agrochemicals were going to go into the water. So they just took out more than the 30-meter buffer zone that we had required. And it's made a huge difference. It's like already I know they're not spraying down there. There's nothing to spray. And it's, yeah, the bunch of things that have been done in collaboration with us that have just made the whole thing. We're on their notification list, so I know when they're going to spray and all those kind of things. So we're hoping that we can use those kind of things going forward if we are doing some proactive management of a high-risk orchard. We can also keep records of frivolous, vexatious, or malicious complaints on file, and those do happen, as we know. You don't always get lucky with your neighbors, and we have to investigate every complaint that comes in. I know some people are like, oh my God, I can't believe you're calling me again. But that's my job. That's what I do. So, but at least if I know the history of the whole thing, it informs my investigation going forward.
So I'm just thinking about this. There's a lot of gremlins in there.
Yes.
Do you have appetite for reverse sensitivity clauses when land is being developed? So I own a piece of property in the middle of Blenheim, in the middle of grapes.
Right.
And I have a reverse sensitivity. I bought that property. It's on the title. I bought that property knowing that it had been subdivided and it's in the middle and surrounded by grape orchards. I cannot complain about the everyday activity that goes on unless there's a breach, you know. But because you do get vexatious people who move in and they've had this idyllic dream that they'll have this little organic garden and everything be fine, and they smell, or they think they smell sometimes, the agrochemical. And I mean, I had a complaint last year in Katikati, 150 metres down from the orchard, and not even on the windward side. The wind was going that way, and they reckoned they could smell the product that was being put on. And on investigation, guy was still on site. I said, "What's your anemometer reading?" Told me immediately. So I guess this reverse sensitivity is I thought this, I mean, I bought this property and I'm looking at this and I knew all about it.
Yes.
So I'm buying it knowing that there is horticultural activity around the piece of land that I've purchased for domestic occupation.
Alex,
have you never heard of it?
I have.
We wouldn't consider it.
Yeah.
Because any person is allowed to call the council within their right,
Because
even
I
if they're
know
contracted out of that and their property.
But it means that I can't become vexatious of activity, of noise. They harvest grapes at night.
Yeah.
So I can't become vexatious about noise at night, spraying that goes on in there within the bounds of the orchard just because I don't like it.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's interesting that you say that though, because it was a vineyard that I had. And she explained to me, the woman that I was investigating, she said they've all signed this agreement. And when I talked to, it was Savannah then, she said, well, that doesn't affect us at all.
No,
And how we investigate.
you couldn't contract out of that. But every officer who's looking into a spray drift incident that comes in Kirikiri and they're living right next to the vineyard and they only bought that property to our perception of the situation.
Spray
straight
drift
away.
is different.
Yeah.
I mean, so I'm talking about
Noise and
Noise,
yeah.
we
the
don't
perception
monitor.
about sprays. You know,
Yeah.
they are spraying over there and you can see the spraying and suddenly I don't like it, even though it's not coming onto my
Yeah.
property.
We have family, friends of family members that live near the spray calling it. Yeah, and it's just spread around slowly, and then someone wants to do something about it.
Yeah.
There's all complaints.
You'd be always going to get complaints too. Do you know what I mean? Like even in forestry, like you'll have someone that's come up from Auckland to go live in a nice, sort of off the grid thing, and then realise they've
Purchased in the middle of a
right next to a massive commercial estate, and then they're not happy with because it's ruined their view because all the trees are coming down. Like I guess we can't really change.
No,
Yeah.
I guess that's what I mean by reverse sensitivity. And then just getting back to your spray pans online.
Yes.
So how then do you've done it once and you've done an annual spray plan?
Then I generate an activity. So we have a program called Iris, and it's what everything goes through. It's quite complicated, and it's quite an amazing program actually. Once you finally figure out how to use it, and what can happen is then I've just logged it. It's in there. You can upload your documents into it, and I can look at them, and then I can generate what's called an activity, and it will remind me in a year's time that I can send out a little email or something and say, hey, can you update your annual spray plan and submit it to me again?
So how helpful is that? This is just a question. How helpful is that? So I've done my spray pan. Sent it to you, picked it off, and now I just, because the most important thing is the everyday stuff. Every time you go to spray, you have to do the risk management of the moment, not when you did your spray plans, which says what the checklist that what you might be looking at. So I'm just
It's an excellent point. And this is the thing I had a hard time wrapping my head around it at first. And it's a hard thing to explain to people because the risk assessment, to be any good, generally relies heavily on the spray plan. Otherwise, it's just really long and arduous. Like for a spray contractor who's an atom sprayer or whatever, and he's just going from place to place, he can say, as per the spray plan, we're doing blocks A, B, and C, we'll do this because of this. Otherwise, what I'm running into is contractors, helicopter pilots. They're just like, oh, I don't have time for that. I can't do a 17-point risk assessment that actually shows a map of where everything is and all that. And I get that. And that's where the spray plan is really important. That's the anchor of everything. And then the risk assessment's done on the day and says, like we said in the spray plan, as per the spray plan, we're doing this, this, and this.
So unless you have I guess what I'm saying is unless you have an adjunct to that, which is as per my spray plan, these are the checklists that I need to tick off because those are the risks in my spray plan.
Yeah.
And I can easily access that and do it and keep a copy for myself or upload it.
Yeah.
I'm just being a bit of a devil's advocate here.
Yeah, absolutely. They have to keep those risk assessments. I'm dealing with the guy right now. He says, I do the risk assessment. And I said, well, where is it?
Yeah.
He says, well, I don't report it.
Yeah, they go like this. And I go, I can't see that. I can't see that.
Yeah. It's not.
So I'm just, I guess what I'm saying is I'm concerned that all that effort will go into that spray plan.
Right.
No.
And then no effort in the risk assessment.
But the important thing is,
And Jane kind of raised that point actually earlier too, that Yeah, it's assessing risk is the main thing, not covering every single point. We talked about that the other day.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
from that perspective, I suppose that there's a process that you need to go through. And I mean, we talk about the spray plan being almost like this is the plan.
Yeah.
I've identified these risks and this is how I plan to manage them.
Yeah.
You've got the risk assessment on the day, and we talk about, you know, immediately before spraying, check X, Y, Z. A good operator is actually doing some of that 3 to 5 days before they spray. So 3 to 5 days before you spray, that's when you should be checking your shelter belt is intact, or you've got the right equipment and you've got the right setup of your sprayer and all that, and what the weather forecast is for 3 to 5 days. You know, therefore, which way you're going to spray your property, or which are your sensitive areas. You know, which ones are going to be downwind, and really that one on the day is almost just confirming that everything you planned 3 to 5 days ago is actually correct now. Nothing's changed since then. There is a requirement, is it in the plan, to write down, you know, what you did that was, or deviations from the spray plan. So if you did things that you didn't plan to note those down.
If you were going to do this, you know, like, because it's as a grower and dealing with a lot of growers in John Wilkie as well, is that we're already doing a whole heap of this for Global Gap and whatnot. But if you really want a spray plan and you want people to participate, you need to facilitate. So you really, to me, in my ideal world would be you put on your website a template of what you want.
Exactly. Agreed.
Then
Yep.
if you possibly have another little box, the dialogue box of any deviations that you want people to put in throughout the season. So it's as easy as possible, because like people are in their 80s that are dealing with it. So technology is not their best friend. And so I just sort of think, and we are already swamped with a lot of this anyway. We do a spray program. We do a spray diary. We fill in the spray diary. We have to have a demonstrated need to do it. Our spray contractor provides us with the wind speed. We have to notify we have to have all of our contacts that we have to, and we have to provide those in Global Gap audits and whatnot. So I mean, you know, if you want people to participate, unless you're going to mandate it, but then if you mandate it and it's too hard, people will just cheat.
And I can't mandate it, so don't worry about that. I have to follow the plan. So the only thing I have is that in the plan it says that you must make available. It says make available upon request. So I'm requesting.
We can all do that through a spray diary, through the industry spray diary.
And one of the challenges I have is that we have probably one of the most complex spray diaries, because avocados have a UAF, unique avocado factor. That is the spraying throughout the year in the 18 months that the fruit is on the tree. It's not growing in spring, harvested in the summer, gone burgers, and spraying is now on no fruit, no leaves. So we have a diary that was originally driven by food safety. Critical to know our PHIs and maximum residue limits so that we can harvest throughout that long season. And so some of the things that we have captured, and we can probably get it, you know, I could put a thing in to have updated. Yes, we do capture what the weather was like, but we don't actually capture the speed of the wind. We say, yes, it was low, medium, high, which direction was coming, and we don't capture that. That's because it's a food safety diary. It's not a spray, it's not a regional council air plans compliance diary. But all the time we're looking to help the growers meet their reporting compliance for GAP. We've recently mandated that the grower must put all his fertilizers in there, and you can now download a report which gives you the fertilizer use on and activity, ground applied fertilizers, because we were only focused on foliar applied fertilizers for food safety. Now they have to, we're now taking them through the next step of putting everything in there. So we have got pest monitoring results that go in.
Yeah.
Because there has to be a justified reason to spray.
Yeah.
Against a threshold of pests that they have found. So we've got a lot of complexity in that diary already.
Yes.
And so we have to tread carefully, don't we, Chris? Because we just will get, a revolt.
Yes. Yeah.
So we have to step slowly. For us, this year, we've now please put all your fertilizers in, and we've made it a little simpler in that we're just saying what's the total amount you used and what was the hectares you put it on for your ground applied fertilizer. And so that can now be meet our farm environment plans, etc., reporting, global gap.
And then the revolt's not actually your biggest risk. Your biggest risk is that people cheat.
Cheat.
And then if they cheat, you lose the integrity of what you're doing.
What's
It's the whole spray document, the whole risk management. You lose the whole lot if you force. And that's what happens. It's not about revolting. It's about just not doing.
Yeah,
and
that's
then
right.
when the fruit ends up in an export market, then we've got problems, like major problems. And so when you're thinking about your process, I'd be trying to facilitate and make things as easy as possible and user friendly as possible, so that you don't have people that go, look at this, I better get some of this, because that's the worst thing you can do.
Absolutely, I agree with completely. Actually,
So it might be, I don't know. Because I mean, it's good to have a spray plan because that's been yours and my battle forever. Is whenever there's a complaint and I go to a grower and I go, "Where's your spray plan?" And there's this pause, and if there's a pause, my heart sinks because I can't help them. I haven't got this spray. I've written spray plans for people. I've sat with them and written. And ask them the questions and fill them in. But I can't do that for all the growers.
No.
But we could have workshops.
Yes, and we could as well. And that's actually, if you do the next slide, because that's exactly what I was. Oh, that's where we're targeting. But anyhow, the website thing at one point is.
Oh, you're targeting at our stuff.
Oh, maybe that was the wrong word.
Wrong choice of words.
What I think you'll get if you
engaging, it's a bit of
there. Thank you.
If you put the request there, you'll get a certain percentage.
Yes.
Like that, and then if you've got your problem ones, make sure that they have got everything possible in your system to help.
Yeah.
If they do have a vexatious neighbour.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Same as like my site and stuff on council website, where my one takes you to a portal for all the forestry stuff, because I had the same issue, like little woodlot crews, they didn't know how to do it. They just thought too hard basket, I'm just going to run the gauntlet and just do an illegal operation. They're sort of going through now where we've actually got templates on there on a schedule on what's required, and then a step-by-step process on how to do that. And then also now I've got added onto the website actual examples of mapping and examples of what I look for, so far as expectations. So when they do a submission, it's not this just big back and forth for 2 weeks over email saying, this map's no good.
That's not right.
And back and forthing with that. So I think template would be handy. I think having some examples of mapping or what a really good spray plan would look like and having that put up there.
Yes.
I think a workshop was a really great idea, for spray plans and things like that as well. But
something where they bring their laptops. Some of them haven't got them, and you actually. That's how we train for spray diary. We had an upgrade in our spray diary. And we had workshops here in Whangarei for our Whangarei growers. We had extra laptops, they were fine to use because you could just get them onto your website and you'd actually sit down and move around the work, working with them to.
If you go onto our website and you go on to forestry, because I haven't done it yet, I'm in the process, because of course you have to work with your team here, and it's complicated. Anyway, it's getting there. It's at the initial stages. But the forestry one is what I'm aiming for. What they have up there and the way it takes you through step by step, and gives you portals and gives you links and everything. It's just makes it really simple. And that's kind of what I've modeled the whole thing around, is that's where we want to go. It shouldn't be complicated. You know, like you said, you're already doing it. You've got the global gap stuff. It's just
it's not complicated for some people, but it is for
it's daunting.
I mean, I do a huge number of spray diaries for people because, otherwise when that fruit gets to the pack house, it's not going to be able to be exported because they will make mistakes and they don't know what to look for. And so it's just sort of like, I just think that it needs to be, I think years ago, probably about 10 years ago, they did a survey of the average age of an avocado grower, and it was like 60 years of age or something like that.
Yeah, it goes to 70s.
80s and like that. So I just think that is, it certainly needs to be user friendly.
That said, we've got some new younger people coming into the industry, which are much fitter, but it's those that struggle. It's those that struggle with what they call the paperwork. That we have to find ways. I mean, Sarah will know. We took our Avo Green onto online learning, and and now we have an annual refresher, which everybody has to do, and we've still got a few that we have to file, print, and send them.
Which
because they just don't,
Yeah, I get it.
I think,
Reminds me, I've got mine to do because it just came the other day.
I think at the end of the day, you're probably not going to be able to cater to, you know what I mean, everybody. But I think if we can come up with a really efficient, simplistic way, that is a good way to operate with those templates, I think would be handy.
Do you have a feel for how many companies you're talking
about? This is my problem. I don't have a great feel for it because I just don't have the data. You'd think we'd have a GIS layer or something. We do have a new layer that does show land use a bit, but it's based on an algorithm, like a computer algorithm that just looks for like stripes in the landscape or whatever it says.
So we have about 800, between 800 and 1,000 export growers.
Nationally or Northland?
Nationally, but I don't know how, I could tell. I don't know how many. I'd have to do the demographics on things.
I've asked so many people, and Zavana, who is on maternity leave, that's who Alex is taking over for. She's kind of been the driving force behind all this. Since I started, we've been trying to figure this question out, and I cannot find anything that will give me this information. So right now, I'm just, the original idea was that I would just look at the map on GIS and just go, oh, that looks like a kiwi fruit orchard. And
you can come to us because we've got all of our orchards GIS map.
Can you give me that though?
Are
you allowed to do that?
I'm not sure.
That's the tricky
part. I mean,
collaborative.
Yeah.
Using it for.
Even if you can send them something from you.
Correct. That's correct. Yeah. And then where's your demographics? Where do you begin? Are you Tapora? Do you cover Tapora?
No.
Regional.
No. South of Kaiwaka, our jurisdiction ends.
Okay, south of Kaiwaka. So, and then all the way to the north, right
to the top. Yeah.
Right to the tip.
We're just saying, because I think MPI, you got to register the use of the property.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can get MPI.
Yeah, it's true.
When they give it to me.
It's an annual.
Yeah.
But
registration.
There'll be public knowledge.
2 years. I thought it was blank.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
That's what I mean with these meetings.
It's also the other thing that came out with regards to rates, and like I got one for our orchard out there. So, and they were doing kiwi fruit orchards. So it started with O. They were actually asking you to identify if you'd had improvements on your horticulture land or not. So the council or regional council must have, and they were asking all horticultural landowners, what the land use was and whether there'd been improvements on the property and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So I mean, somebody must have that.
Somebody must have this. So maybe finance is where I need to go.
Yeah, I just can't think of the name off my hand, but it started with O. There was a survey come out a while back, and and that you could respond to and say that you'd cut trees out or you'd added to it, or you know, like, so yeah, so
Well, already this has been useful for me at least.
What's that mean? It's starting to eventually get all the right people at the table, you know. So you start putting those feelers out more, we end up having the right people networking for this group. Yeah.
Yep.
And you're looking at horticulture only, not agriculture in terms of this?
Just horticulture at the moment, because obviously I still deal with afforestation sprays and all that sort of stuff as well, but I'm just trying to zero in on commercial horticulture for this one. This is the idea. So, and this slide here is just the same as what Fern was saying before. So a forum to develop stronger working relationships based pretty much on the same model. Safe space to discuss policy issues, you know, without prejudice settings. So if you're saying, look, I don't do this, this and whatever, I'm not going to be writing to. No. It's a safe space. We can talk about everything. And we want to reach mutually acceptable outcomes. And to discuss upcoming trends and issues in the industry. You know, we're talking about water and things, and drought this year was, oh my goodness, the panic about the drought, which was annoying because it was usually raining.
Yeah, that was grossly hyped.
Yes, that drought. But, you know, these are issues that are affecting, everyone. And so they are issues that we can talk about, which is great. And like Fern was saying, a forum for council to report on and discuss compliance matters and statutory obligations. I can do a little presentation and, you know, tell you what's going on in the industry and what's happening out there, where I'm getting complaints, which could be quite useful, you know, if you're thinking, you know, what is public perception these days? Because that's another thing that right now, social license, I think, is actually quite good. Even with these annoying Aucklanders that have moved up and don't want to see any spray. I think the social license up here is actually quite good. People do realize how important horticulture is to the economy up here. We certainly realize it at council. It's very important. And we want to keep that social license because we get a lot of pressure, funnily enough. Council, we have been investigated by the EPA. That was about 3 years ago, whether we were doing enough to police the whole agrochemical thing. And that is what prompted this whole idea of having a proactive monitoring program. There's so much turnover in this role, and there just didn't get any traction on how we could actually make it work. So I'm trying to finally get that going. And we had a parliamentary commission last year based on 2 public complaints that once again investigated whether we were doing enough to uphold and enforce the rules. And we were exonerated in the end, but it was pretty tense. You know, we did 2 months of my manager scrambling around trying to put out fires and do damage control and provide the documentation that we're doing everything. We sent out missives to councils across New Zealand to say, well, what are you guys doing that we're not doing? And it turns out that we're actually stricter than most, which you probably know. So it was, but there is a lot of pressure, public pressure and pressure from other agencies that we are doing enough. So that's where this is coming from. And that's me, really. So the one thing I did want to get going, oh, here we go. Laws without enforcement are just good advice. This is one of my favorite quotes in compliance. And it's true. You can, you know, ask people for things and they may or may not want to give it to you. And yeah, a little bit of enforcement helps. So going forward, though, as an agenda item, in order to keep the ball rolling, I was going to ask anyone here if they had any ideas for or volunteer for presenting at the next meeting.
We do from here.
Yeah. I already had somebody actually in our lunchroom when I said what I was doing. Nikki said, if you want me to do something about biosecurity, I can for your next meeting. So that's something that could happen. But maybe something a little more relevant to what you're doing. I'm looking at you. Whatever you guys want to talk about. Really?
Are you doing anything on water take?
Yeah, I do it quite a bit because I do the Aupuri Aquifer one.
Because one of the things we've just become, well, we're aware of it, but there's a whole change in water take in the Bay of Plenty, which and water use. So dropping from 35, I'm not on an orchard, so I don't know what I'm talking about, but 35,000 litres a day.
Not sure.
So however many
Right.
litres a day. And people have got their storage tanks so they can take their
Daily
and
load.
then when they need to irrigate their avocado trees, they've got a number of tanks. Now it's been slashed to 15. They'll actually be out of business. So it's that. And somebody said, oh, well, perhaps you could get more tanks, but that's kind of a bit ridiculous. They'd need about another 7 to 11 tanks to be able to take this, to take the maximum and store that. So I'm just curious to know.
Water would be an interesting one because it's going to be a big issue going forward, I think.
So that's the other, that's kind of the other, you know, spray use and.
I'm quite
compliance
interested in
and
how much spray, how much of the water use is for spraying? It would be quite a lot, hey?
More for irrigation.
Well, for these guys, but.
Yeah.
Way more.
Yeah.
John,
Yes.
John, do you know your
Oh, sorry.
amount of water that you use irrigating in 12 months versus what you use for spraying? I reckon it'd be a fraction. Spraying would be a
Oh,
fraction.
it's a fraction of it.
Fraction. I mean, probably not even 1%. I'm
We would have had a frost today up there, so our meganets would have gone on. We have three
Yes,
2 million litre
see?
tanks, 2 million litre tanks, and that'll empty it in 6
You won't be
hours.
able to use it for frost protection. Apparently the rules are, I have only been on the periphery of this, so I've been starting to talk to Brad about this, but our grower was at a meeting the other day with, in Tauranga and was shocked to find out that they said, well, we might as well chop our trees down and.
Yeah.
So, and what do you spray at 1,000 litres a hectare? Or?
Well, I was just going to say that before ours is quite a complex variation because I use helicopter as well.
Oh,
And ground spray.
So that's 450
Yeah,
or something.
but we have a combination. We just started to use oil, so we're going to 1,000 litres a hectare, but normally we are 600 litres a hectare, high volume, low volume, high concentrate.
So there's 120,000 litres, and he used 6 million in 6 hours on his irrigation today.
Wow.
Yeah, spraying is nothing.
Spraying
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think it's to do with the land size. So it was like those people around 5 hectares that have had these resource consents.
Yeah.
Been complying with these resource consents, but now that's going.
Yeah, I don't think, I don't know about the water use bit here, but nothing's changed for us, has it?
Telemetry
requirement. Yeah, but we're not reducing the.
There's a water plan process for Northland.
Yeah.
In process at the moment, isn't there? We're still in consultation process.
Yeah, the freshwater plan.
So there's a lot of growers asking me, and it's great for me because our property's under 5 hectares, so I'm going, who cares?
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a lot of people asking me, well, what does it mean for them? And and I don't understand it, and I don't have time to read through what's made. So it'd probably be quite a topic for you.
Yeah.
To read through what's in what's paper.
Yeah, so if you can educate the educators.
I was going to say, worst case scenario, you could get someone from policy, one of these
Yeah.
meetings, to answer the questions and go through that plan in one of these meetings. I think would be advantageous.
Yeah, because that freshwater plan right now, because it's on hold and
It's been
everything.
it's been put on hold, so I think
well,
now it's something.
One of the things I want to sort of hopefully get out of not this, but future ones is because we then have to educate our
Oh, that's good to know, actually.
Yeah.
Because
growers, whether it become part of the global gap or a regional council thing. And if we've got a global gap, does that suffice the council rather than having two duplicate?
Yeah.
Right.
So we started this year just coaching our growers on a continuous improvement plan on their orchards, and can be part of that.
Because if they bring in Global Gap version 6, what a doozy.
Really?
We're using a lot more, we're modernising our methods of application of FERT into more low volume, and we've got a new pump systems and tanks we're working with at the moment, and we can do, most of our zones are about 9 hectares, and we can put one out in 20 minutes and irrigate the whole lot and in a small amount of volume.
That's a great presentation for the next meeting.
Yes.
There you go.
So
Some case studies.
it's a game changer for us because we like the orchard I manage and developed, it's 205 hectares, and we have 22 zones and about 280 blocks of trees, about 0.8 hectare. So, you know, if we can get out a zone in half an hour, it means we can get, we're saving a lot more water. And especially this time of the year, because normally on a big development like that, every, once where the trees were small, we could stop all the irrigation in the winter. But now, because a lot 130 hectares of it's on real sandy country, so it's like hydroponics. We're playing hydroponics with all this heavy rainfall. So, you know, we get a lot of leaching of nutrients. So we've got to always uptake it. The other side of the orchard, which is 70 hectares, or more peat based. So we have different methods of fertigation on those sides too, to make sure that everything's efficiently done. But these new tank systems we're developing is going to be a real game changer, and getting, you know, we're using a lot of more biostimulants now as well, and a lot of liquid lime, and that's been a like Omnipro stuff. You guys know what that is, don't you? So
how do you apply those?
Sorry?
How do you apply that then? Like with this?
We put it through to fertigation.
Okay, so it just goes
with this new system. We can put it out in half an hour per zone. So that's roughly about 10 blocks in there. So 10 to 12 blocks.
It must be quite expensive to put in, though. I would think. Is it quite expensive to put in the fertigation? Sounds all right.
Irrigation lines.
Oh, you just run through the same.
It doesn't even go through our fertikits or anything like that. There's no blockages, and we can apply all sorts of ferts that, you know, that we can dissolve, and really, really quick, on time. Because, as you know, avocado orchards, trees, they change with a week by week sometimes, and you got to be onto it straight away, otherwise you're going to pay for it. So this is one way we can get in a big number, get it out really quick, and in small amounts of water. Because the orchards up there are pretty wet.
Yeah.
We had about 280 mils of rain last month. So, and that's just some areas. So, didn't really need that.
Captured it all in our salt traps.
Yes,
Not like the 450 we had last February.
Oh, I know. Thank goodness. Okay, I think we should do something about water then. That sounds good. That sounds pretty unanimous. People are interested in water. So we'll figure something out then.
You put something on that survey too.
Oh, yes.
And options. The next one.
The kids said that we can put out a Survey Monkey survey, and we'll ask everybody what they think. So we'll send that out and you can just tell me. And the other question I had just quickly before I do a closing karakia, because it is noon and we are having a light lunch out there just beside. What was it? It's just slipped out of my head. Oh, how many times do we want to meet a year? I'm thinking these guys meet quarterly. It could be biannually. I know everybody's busy. So whatever, we can put that on SurveyMonkey too, but have a think about that. Because we're happy to provide the venue and do all that sort of thing. And if you guys can show up, that's grand. And we'll try to get more Kiwi people in person next time. I won't make it on the same day as spray days. That was a mistake. I had my days cross-awful. So yeah, and times of year that are easier for people as well. We'll think about that. It'll be different for each industry, but yeah, things like that. Other than that, my closing karakia, can you put it up there? So kia tautou rangamari, kiranga ina iwi o te ao. And that's us. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Right. Lunchtime. I'm getting hangry.
A little bit.
Time to go. Stellar work, Mila. Really bad technology. Good on you. I would have just cried.
Without hearing